Howdy folks, you're watching Deuce and Guns, and today we're talking about hydrolocking your diesel or Deuce engine. Now what do I mean when I say hydrolock an engine? Well, any internal combustion engine can be hydrolocked. Gasoline, diesel, multi-fuel, I guess a natural gas engine, anything that's internal combustion engine that involves compression can be hydrolocked. And basically what that is where an engine gets filled up with water, with fluid, an incompressible fluid. Usually it's water, sometimes it's fuel, and sometimes it is coolant. It is antifreeze. So it's one of those three usually that gets into the engine. So when the piston's coming up against the head, if it hits a lot of fluid there, it can't finish the cycle and go back down. So it doesn't compress, it just hits a brick wall and stops. And unfortunately, that can do all kinds of damage, all kinds of havoc to your engine, including bending a crank rod, breaking the crank itself, and it could throw the whole kit and caboodle out the side of the engine, destroying the block in the engine. The vast majority of hydrolocked engines are caused by user error. Basically, it's been raining a lot. It's been raining a ton in Tennessee right now, and we've had a lot of hydrolock engines because people see a puddle going across the road and not realize that puddle's 4 feet deep. So they go through the puddle and they ended up submerging their engine underwater, which your engine is still going. It's basically your engine is a huge pump, it's a huge air pump, sucking in tons and tons of oxygen from the atmosphere to burn in the fuel. Well, if that water breaches into the air pickup, the air intake, then it will go into the engine. It will be sucked into the engine. Now, a tiny bit of mist of water will be fine usually. But if you submerge your intake, then it is going to pour gallons of water into your engine, as much as your engine can hold. So if you got a 1.6 liter engine, it's going to try to engulf 1.6 liters of water from that river. And that's going to stop your engine flat, going to total the engine. The engine will be no more. That will be useless after something like that. Now, luckily, due to the Deuce's height and where the air cleaner is located, you rarely have to worry about a river fording issue with a Deuce and a half. Here's the air cleaner right here. So the water, you'd have to be basically, up to here. So with me, that would be a little over nipple height. That's an official measurement, by the way, nipple height. So you're gonna have to get your water way up here. It's gonna be at your knees inside the cab. So if you're just getting your feet wet, you probably won't have a hydrolock issue with your Deuce and a half. Also, the fact that this fender is out here so far, it protects any kind of splash coming up off the front tire going into the intake as well. So basically, you're gonna have to cause a wave to flow over this fender and get in there, or just be fording something that's way too deep. Of course, you can get a snorkel kit for a Deuce and a half if you really need one. I will highly doubt anyone in the civilian world has ever really utilized, maybe a handful, but other than just a few handful of diehard people, there has been very few people who have utilized a snorkel kit for a Deuce and a half, but man, do they look cool. Now, the second most common way that a engine gets hydrolocked is, as I mentioned before, coolant in the engine, a fluid in the engine, coolant. That can be a blown head gasket. Now, it really depends on how the head gasket is manufactured, how the head and engine combination is set up. But if a head gasket blows the right way, sometimes it can open up a channel between your radiator fluid, your antifreeze going through the block and head of the engine, and will go right into the cylinder combustion chamber of the engine. You just fill that thing up with coolant, and of course, again, a fluid does not compress, and the same thing happens. And the third most common way that you hydrolock your engine, which unfortunately is the most common way you hydrolock your Deuce and a half engine, is when your engine is turned off and you leave your fuel pump running. The fuel pump will pressurize the fuel system. Sometimes it will pressurize it to the point where the injectors, the fuel injectors, will drip a few drops of diesel fuel or whatever fuel you're using. Hopefully it's diesel fuel. And when it tries to compress that fuel, the fuel is not atomized. It's not mixed up with oxygen. It is just liquid fuel. It's a little pool of liquid fuel. Will completely kill that engine. Now, I'm pretty sure I've showed this in a previous video, but we're gonna go ahead and go through the steps again how to start your Deuce and keep from hydrolocking your Deuce, or at least check to see if it is hydrolocked before you do any damage. Number one, you pull the engine stop all the way out. That is the fuel cutoff. That's how you stop a diesel. That's how you turn a diesel off, is you turn off the fuel. You starve the engine of fuel and it just runs out of fuel. There's no spark. There's no way to cut off an engine other than just starve it of fuel. You're going to turn on your ignition. You're going to hear the fuel pump start up. And you come over here to your start button. You get your key out. Key, get it? And you're just going to bump it. And you're going to see if the engine turns over or if it stops suddenly. And you'll know if it stops suddenly. Okay, that's fine. So we're going to go ahead and push the engine stop in, turn it on the fuel, and we're going to start her up. Boy, she runs and starts nice, doesn't she? Okay, well, let's say you did everything correctly. You were a good Deuce and a half owner, but unfortunately, you still got hydrolocked. What do you do now? What's your next step? Well, your next step is to get out your tools and get the hood up. I'm going to walk that hood back. Alrighty. Now I just bought a super tall tripod here, so I'm going to see if I can do this and still have a steady shot, because I really wanted to have the ability to show you guys the engine with it still having a steady laser beam shot like a tripod would provide. Okay, let's see if that works. So this is a 6-cylinder engine, and at the top of each cylinder is a fuel injector. Theoretically, if you take out the fuel injectors and then crank the engine, it should squeeze out like a fountain, squeeze out all the extra fuel that's in there. Then you reinstall the injectors and pray to whatever God you pray to that was enough to get her going. Now, if that does not work, then you're going to have to take off the whole head and clean everything out. So you're going to have to take off the valve covers. You got 2 valve covers here. And of course the whole head, which is 2 heads as well. It's split right here. So you got 3 and 3. You take all those out. If you know which head has the hydrolocked issue, you know it's just one cylinder that's hydrolocked, then you just worry about that one head. But in actuality, if you are removing one head, you might as well take them both off, so then you can change out both head gaskets and have the peace of mind that everything is fresh and clean and new. Now, hypothetically, let's say you were not the best, most attentive Deuce and a half owner. You bent a rod, you threw a rod through the engine block, which happens. That's the #1 killer of the multi-fuel engine, is throwing a rod through the block. They don't come apart very easily, but when they do, they kaboom themselves. It's pretty dramatic. So, what do you do then? Well, you can go out and look out and try to find another multi-fuel engine. If you want to keep it multi-fuel, then you can do that. You can find them for sale on occasion. They're not easy to find. They're not easy to install. They're super heavy. They're way heavier than a normal diesel engine. Now, a very popular thing to do if you blow up your Deuce and a half engine, your multi-fuel engine, go ahead and scrap it and then find an alternative engine. You can get a Cummins 12 valve. They fit right in there, no problem. You can get an International, a Cat engine in there. You can throw all kinds of different engine options in there, and you have more power. You have a more modern engine, something from the 80s to early 90s. So you have a more modern engine, you have more power, you have more fuel economy, which, I mean, you're driving a Deuce and a half. You said screw it to fuel economy a long time ago, but you do get more fuel economy. You know, you're almost guaranteed double digits instead of just hoping and praying for it. So upgrading the engine on a Deuce, it becomes very attractive when you realize that it'll probably be cheaper, or at least as expensive as replacing it with a stock engine. Well, guys, that's it for me today. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give me a like and go subscribe. A lot more is on the way. If you want to stay on a Deuce Guns channel and keep on watching videos, go ahead and click on one of these 2 videos right here, and that will keep you on a Deuce Guns channel watching away. If you want to be notified of my videos the second they go live, go ahead and ring that notification bell below. If you have comments, questions, or show ideas, leave that in the comment box below the video. And as always, you guys have a great day. See ya.